Boilermaker Jazz Band started 30 years ago at Carnegie Mellon. And I don't know how many bands that start at colleges and actually make a living for 30 years. I mean, they are booked. I booked them over a year ago together. Please welcome the Boilermaker Jazz Band. Thank you.
One, two, there. you. Thank you all so very much and welcome. We are the Boilermaker Jazz Band. Such a delight to be here this evening. Thank you to Nick for inviting us to play for you. Can we have a little bit of house lights so I can see these beautiful people? It's hard to, it's like playing to a weird blue wall here. Anyway, yeah, there we go. So nice to see you all. Thank you so much for coming out. We hope you enjoyed our first number. That was called Rosetta, and it was actually written by the great Earl Father Hines, one of the great early jazz piano players who happened to come from a place called Duquesne, Pennsylvania, which is just down the street from our hometown in Pittsburgh. So we were happy to start it off that way. We're going to do a bunch of music for you tonight that'll take you from the early days of jazz all the way up from the up into the swing era. Highlight some of the great composers and musicians and singers from that wonderful magical time period. And so we hope you will enjoy it. And one of the earliest song forms, and you can't do any jazz concert without one of these, was of course the blues. So we're going to do a little tune that was very popular in the teens and 20s with all the early jazz bands, a little thing called the Tim Ruth Blues. Here we go. One, two, one, two, two. Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce the musicians playing for you tonight. How about him for Jeff Bush on slide trombone? Antonio Cruz on the piano. String bass, Tony Napolis. And on the drums, Thomas White. And now we'd like to invite to the microphone our delightful vocalist. How about a hand for Jennifer McNulty? We'd like to do a tune for you now from one of the great piano players, once again, of the early jazz days from the 20s and 30s. The great Fats Waller, probably his most, one of his most famous compositions anyway. We hope you'll enjoy it. This is Honeysuckle Rose.
Every honeybee fills with jealousy when they see you out with me. I don't blame them, goodness knows honeysuckle rose. When you're passing by, flowers droop and sigh, and I know the reason why. You're much sweeter, goodness knows honeysuckle rose. Don't buy sugar, you just have to touch my cup. You're my sugar. It's sweet when you stir it up. When making sense from your tasty lips, keeps the honey kind of drips. Your perfection, goodness knows honeysuckle rose.
great tune, Honeysuckle Rose. He also wrote that little ending riff too. He always used to do that with his band. It's fun to play. So we hope you enjoyed that as well. We're going to do another tune for you now from the same year, 1929. Take down the tempo just a little bit and play a beautiful tune called More Than You Know, which was actually made famous about 5 years later. Helen Ward had a hit with it with Benny Goodman, and we hope you'll enjoy it. Here we go. One, two.
More than you know, more than you know, man of my heart, I love you so. Lately I find you're on my mind. More than you know, whether you're right, whether you're wrong, man of my heart, I string along. I need you so. More than you'll ever know. Loving you the way that I do, there's nothing I can do about it. Loving maybe I can give, but honey I can't live without it. Oh how I'd sigh, oh how I'd sigh if you got tired and said goodbye. More than I showed, more than you'll ever whether you're wrong, man of my I need you so. More than your love, my love. Loving you the way that I do, there's nothing I can do but love you, baby, all I can do. But honey, I can't live without it. Oh, how I'd sigh, oh, how I'd sigh if you got tired and said goodbye. More than I show, more than you'll ever know.
Show it from the back to everybody. Well, one of the first great swing bands to start the big band swing craze around the nation was a band led by a guy named Fletcher Henderson. He only had the band for a short amount of time and went on later to actually make a great impact on the swing world by arranging for Benny Goodman. A lot of his most famous arrangements that Benny Goodman played were actually written by Fletcher Henderson. But in his early band, he had a lot of famous stars, including a young Louis Armstrong when he first came to New York City. So we're going to do one of his most recognizable little tunes, which he also later incorporated into a Benny Goodman chart. Years later, you'll recognize it. This is called Christopher Columbus. One, two, come on. recognize a riff as soon as we started it, right? A lot of people don't know that that's what that's called. And of course, later on, that became incorporated into Benny Goodman's famous arrangement of Sing, Sing, Sing that they did a few years later at the famous 1938 Carnegie Hall Jazz Concert. So there you go, with Christopher Columbus. We're going to do a few tunes for you now by one of the earliest composers of what now is sort of always being called the Great American Songbook. And we're going to do some of his tunes. Yeah, you can clap for the Great American Songbook. His name is Irving Berlin. Irving Berlin, yes, and you can clap for Irving Berlin too. Sort of an interesting story and a classic story. He was an immigrant Russian Jew escaping from persecution there, came to the Lower East Side of Manhattan as a teenager, and became a singing waiter. And in those days, that was like a really popular thing in the kosher restaurants there. And the waiters would sing popular songs of the day and would also make up their own songs. And people would ask for certain tables because they knew certain waiters would be there and they liked the way they sang. And so Irving Berlin had very little to no musical training, but he would make up these songs about different things going on in the world and just general topics. And all of a sudden, people started saying to him, you know what, like you should try to publish that. That's really good. And sure enough, he did start publishing tunes. And really never was a schooled musician. He used to have to play the piano and have other people kind of write down what he was playing because he didn't really know what it was. He was just playing what he heard. And the story goes, I don't know if you know this, Antonio, the story goes that the only key he could play in was G flat. And that's funny because it's like, that's a difficult key to play in, but that was the only key he could play in. And he had a piano that would with a crank on it, that would change the keys without him changing where his hands would play. So he could play with different singers and stuff that could, so anyway. It's a very interesting story. He had a long career and wrote hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs for Broadway, and it was so. Anyway, we're going to do a tune that we recorded for our latest CD that was written by Irving Berlin for the show Annie Get Your Gun, and this is called They Say It's Wonderful. They say that falling in love is wonderful. It's wonderful. So they say. And with the moon up above, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So they tell me. I don't recall who said it. I know I never read it. I only know that falling in love is grand. And that thing that's known as romance is wonderful, wonderful in every way. So they say. recall who said it. I know I never read it. I only know that falling in love is grand. And that thing that's known as romance is wonderful, wonderful in every way. In every way. In every way. So they say. We're going to ask Jennifer McNulty to come on up and join us once again for a couple more Irving Berlin tunes, starting with this one that he wrote for the birth of his daughter, and maybe his most famous song. There's quite a few of them, but this is a very well-known one we hope you'll enjoy, called Blue Skies.
Blue skies, nothing but me, nothing but blue skies.
We're going to do one more Irving Berlin tune for you. This is one that he wrote, spanned such a long career that he went from the Broadway stage into when the Soundies first started, and also had a whole second career writing for movies. And a bunch of those movies featured the great Fred Astaire, who was quite a muse for Irving Berlin's songs. And this is one that we particularly enjoy, that Fred Astaire sang, and it's called "I'm Putting All My Eggs in One Basket." That's right, the Jordan part. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I'm betting everything I've got on you. I'm giving all my love to one baby. Lord help me if my baby don't come through. I'm gonna cry, baby, mama, say don't be in my love account. On the opposite, the love divided in two. Won't do so. I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I'm betting everything I've got on you.
Hope you enjoyed those tunes by Irving Berlin. One of the amazing things about this music that's sort of now known as jazz, of course, but back then was just called songs. You know, music. It was popular music of its day. But to me, what makes it jazz is that all these years later, we can still play these songs and interpret them our way and present them to you. And it's still, I mean, for us, a whole lot of fun anyway. And we hope you guys are enjoying yourselves as well. It's a real pleasure for us to play for you. Before I forget, I want to say hi to my friend Dave Duckworth. He was here playing for you guys, I think, for a cabaret show a few weeks ago. Is that right? He's been in the Savannah area for how many years? 27, you told me. And but he actually was one of the first piano players in my band when we first started many years ago, well, 30 years ago. So good to know we're both still doing it and still vertical, man. It's good to know. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. And they played some groups in Savannah, so go check them out, right?
Yes.
Where do you play? Tell the folks.
The old Pink House.
Oh yeah.
And Chris sometimes, and Mansion on Forsyth Park.
So check them out. And thank you for coming. Good to see you. We're going to do a tune for you now that dates all the way back to 1914, but it sort of sounds modern anyway. It's a very amazing tune, and there's a couple of things that are very interesting about this song besides the fact that it's just a beautiful tune. In the same year, a guy by the name of Giacomo Puccini wrote an opera that became so popular that a popular song was written about one of the characters in the opera and became a hit on its own. So that's kind of how hip people were in 1914. Like, an opera was so popular that you could write a popular tune about a character in an opera and everybody knew what you were talking about. That's never going to happen again, right? So from the inspiration was Puccini's Madame Butterfly. And of course the song is Poor Butterfly, which also became a very great favorite of Benny Goodman. He would always play it on his concerts with his trio or quartet. So we hope you will enjoy our rendition. And for all you dancers, this will be in the key of A flat. And now we're going to feature our trombone man, Jeff Bush. How about a hand for him? Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. We're going to do a piece of music that was made famous by one of my favorite acts in all the show business. They were originally known as Four Boys with a Guitar, but you may know them much better as the Mills Brothers. And do I have any Mills Brothers fans here? Yeah. Okay, you can lie and make me feel good. That's fine too. But this is one for all you travelers. It's called Say CC.
One chord up. One, two, one, two.
That's right. In France, you hear wee wee. Hey, every little Dutch girl says, hey Jethro, ya ya. And every little Danish dog says da. But sweetheart, tell me why. No matter how I try, you won't listen to my plea. You won't say yes in any language to me. When will you say CC? Says, come on, baby, I just wanna hug. Every little Trinidadian mama must know that her favorite trombone player is old Jethro. But sweetheart, tell me why. No matter how I try, you won't listen to my plea. Won't say yes in any language to me. When will you say? When will you say? Big finish, gentlemen. When will you say, see, see? Gotta lower this down. Jeff Bush, everybody. Once we're going to ask Jennifer McNulty to come on out and sing for you once again, and we're going to do a couple tunes to make famous that wonderful singer who was featured with the Benny Goodman Band in the mid-1940s, Lilton Martha Tilton. And we're going to do a song that was written by Rodgers and Hart. We hope you will enjoy. This is called This Can't Be Love. Sometimes I forget this thing is here. I'm going to change weapons for you guys. It's a good book for you. Hey, thanks.
It's an heirloom.
It is.
Good weapon.
You like that?
Yeah.
So let me tell you a little something. Hold on. A lot of us, aside from this thing here, most of the instruments that we're playing are vintage instruments because you need to do that to make the proper sound of the vintage music. And this horn is a little bit more than just a vintage horn. It's a 1924 Busher alto saxophone that was actually, tell me the relation again?
My mother's great uncle.
Okay, so this was his mother's great uncle's saxophone. And Tony played it a little while when he first started playing music in school, and then it sat in his family's closet for quite a number of years. And then his mom asked Tony, "Do you know anybody who might be interested in this horn? Because somebody should be playing it." And he said, "Yeah, I think I know somebody who might be interested in that." So here it is. We hope you enjoy This Can't Be Love. Thank you. 1, 2, 3.
This can't be love because I feel so well. No sobs, no sorrows, no sighs. This can't be love, not getting no dizzy spell. My head is not in the sky. My heart does not stand still, just to be nice and so sweet to be loved. This can't be love because I feel so well, but still I love to look in your
do another song that Martha Tilton sang with the Benny Goodman Band. Probably her most famous song that she sang with him, written by Cole Porter, and has a little klezmer thing going on in there, which we hope you will enjoy. I think Benny liked it for that reason. And this is called My Heart Belongs to Daddy.
Oh. Tearing off a game of golf, I may make a play for the caddy, but when I do, I don't follow through, 'cause my heart belongs to Daddy. If I invite a boy some night to dine on my fine fitted hattie, I just adore his begging for more, 'cause my heart belongs to Daddy. Yes, my heart belongs to Daddy, and I simply couldn't be mine. Oh, my heart belongs to Daddy. Da 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 da. If you feel romantic, I need the one you had from the start. My heart belongs to Daddy, and my Daddy belongs to my heart. St. Patrick's Day, although I may be seen wearing green with a patty, I've always shot with the name of heart, 'cause my heart belongs to Daddy. Though other days at football games may long for a strong undergroundie, I never dream of making the team, 'cause my heart belongs to Daddy. Yes, my heart belongs to Daddy, and I simply couldn't be right. Oh, my heart belongs to Daddy. Da 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 da. I do want you right. My heart belongs to Daddy, and my Daddy, he treats us so You know what that sounds like.
Jennifer McNulty, once again, how about the hand for her? So we've got time for a couple more songs for you this evening, and we'd like to do a few things written by the great Duke Ellington. What more need be said? One of the greatest musicians, composers, and band leaders in the history of jazz, had an illustrious 50-plus year career made his name during the Harlem Renaissance at the Cotton Club, and wrote so many wonderful songs, and led his amazing band with some of the greatest soloists in the history of music throughout those many years. So we're going to do a couple tunes by him. Actually, the first one is going to be a little medley of some of his most famous melodies, and we hope you will enjoy it. We're going to start off with Jeff playing Sophisticated Lady. Then we'll go into the great Johnny Hodges alto saxophone feature, I Got It Bad and That Ain't Good, and then we'll close out with In My Solitude. One, two, Melodies by Duke Ellington. We hope you enjoyed that. Before we play our final number, how about a hand for the musicians once again? Jeff Bush on slide trombone. Antonio Cruz on the piano. Tony Paulus on bass. Thomas Quinn on the drums. Jonathan Nelson singing for you. We'd like to let you know that we do have recordings with us. Right over on the side there, you can say hi to Jennifer and she can sign you on up for those. If you're doing the downloading thing, just look for Boilermaker Jazz Band on the iTunes, the Spotify, all those places. We're all over that stuff too. So please sign on up for that. You can always check out what we're playing. We do travel all around. So look at BoilermakerJazzBand.com. Be our friend on Facebook if you're on that. It's nice to be friends, right? And we're going to jump one for you. That was a signature tune of one of Duke Ellington's early bands. Featured Ben Webster on saxophone, and we're going to jump it for you now to close it out. This is called Cottontail. Here we go. One, two, there. of your way. They bring the flowers that bloom in May. So when it's raining, have no regrets, for it isn't raining rain. You know it's raining violets. And when you see clouds up on the hill, they're sure to bring crowds of daffodils. So keep on looking for that bluebird and listening for his song whenever April showers come along. very much. A happy song of spring. Hope you guys had as much fun as we did here tonight. Thanks for inviting us to play for you. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.